The sliding glass doors of the emergency room opened with that familiar sound, revealing the bright white space and the sharp antiseptic smell typical of a hospital. Marissa Lane held her son's hand tightly, his little hand trembling from pain while she forced her voice to sound calm, even though her heart pounded in her chest. "Be brave for a moment." "Okay, Eli," she whispered, bending to press a light kiss to her son's soft brown hair. "The doctor will take care of you right away." Eli Lane, 6 years old, grimaced, hugging his left arm to his body. He had fallen from the swing on the elementary school playground. The fall hadn't been very severe, but his choking sobs had sent Marissa into a panic. She had grabbed her bag and rushed straight to the hospital. She was both worried and trying to appear strong. Eli needed to feel safe. A mother could not shake when her son was hurting. Yet deep down, Marissa could not deny the unease that had settled over her the moment she stepped into St. Mary's Hospital. At the reception desk, she handed her papers to the middle-aged nurse wearing glasses. The woman nodded, skimmed the documents, then said decisively, "Room 4. At the end of the right hallway, Dr. Holt will take him." Hearing that name felt like a hand squeezing Marissa's heart. Holt. Damian Holt. No, it couldn't be. Fate couldn't be so cruel. Her legs stalled for a beat. For 6 years, she had tried to bury every memory to build a quiet life for herself and her son. 6 years since he left with the promise to dedicate himself fully to medicine, leaving her alone. While she carried a life inside her, there are thousands of people named Holt in the world, she told herself, but her heart raced as if it had recognized a truth before her mind could deny it. "Let's go." "Mom?" Eli tugged her hand, his eyes watery. Marissa managed a forced smile and swallowed her vertigo. She couldn't let her son see her panic. Whatever awaited behind that door. For Eli's sake, he was just a little patient who needed care. She pushed the door and stepped inside. Time seemed to stop. Damian Holt stood with his back to the door, white light falling across the X-ray film he held. Still tall and lean, broad-shouldered, hair black with a few stubborn curls she used to twirl around her finger. His white coat made him look all the more steady and professional. He turned. Their eyes met. 6 years of silence. All the longing and the hurt, everything rushed back in that instant. Marissa, his voice was rough, as if something stuck in his throat. She froze. Her body no longer obeyed her. Only Eli still clung to her hand, staring at the stranger. "Dr. Holt," she answered, her voice colder than she intended. "This is my son, Eli. He fell at the playground." Damian's gaze immediately shifted from her down to the boy. Eli shrank closer to his mother, confused. For a moment, Damian seemed to turn to stone. The way the boy tilted his head, his bright brown eyes, the faint curve of a smile. Everything was so familiar, it made his voice falter. "Hello?" "Little Manna, the doctor will check your injury now," he said, kneeling and offering a gentle smile. "Can you tell the doctor what happened?" Eli glanced at his mother, waiting for her to nod. I was on the swing. I wanted to jump off like a Superman, but I fell." Damian smiled, an expression at once pained and warm. "Even superheroes get hurt sometimes, but they'll heal. Let the doctor take a look." He touched the small arm with careful hands and gently turned it to examine. His eyes lingered on every expression of Eli's face, the focused attention of a physician blending with the quickening beat of a heart that was beginning to recognize something undeniable. "It doesn't look broken," he murmured, as if to himself. "Probably just bruised, but we should take an X-ray to be sure." Eli asked anxiously, "Does it hurt, doctor?" "No, it's just like taking a picture. This picture is special. It shows inside your bones. Pretty cool, right?" The boy giggled, the fear momentarily dissolving. Marissa stood watching the two of them, her heart wavering. Every gesture Damian made, the way he soothed. The tilt of his head to listen was eerily like Eli. Blood ties could not be hidden. When the nurse took Eli away for an X-ray, Marissa intended to follow. But Damian's voice called softly, "Marissa, wait a moment. We need to talk." She turned and met his eyes. After all these years, it was still the same look that had once made her feel wholly loved, the same look that had haunted her long, lonely nights. "There's nothing to say," Marissa whispered, her voice trembling at the end. "Please," he said, a single word, carrying 5 years of silence and all the things never explained. She gave a small nod and followed her son down the corridor, her heart pounding as if it would burst. Only one thought filled her mind. The quiet life she had worked so hard to build was beginning to crumble. The sound of Eli's footsteps and the nurses faded down the hallway, leaving the room so silent that Marissa could hear every beat of her own heart. Damian still stood there, one hand braced on the exam table, the other gripping a pen so tightly his knuckles turned white. The room was bright, but between the two of them the air was thick. Heavier than midnight, Marissa drew in a long breath, trying to steady herself. For 6 years, she had learned to stand tall without leaning on anyone, especially not on the man who had abandoned her in the darkest days. Yet now, with his eyes drilling into hers, all that armor seemed ready to crack. "What do you want, Damian?" she asked, voice carefully measured, though the tremor beneath was impossible to hide. That boy Damian swallowed hard, each word sounding dragged out of his throat. "Eli. How old is he?" Marissa bit her lip, silent. He stepped closer, so close that she caught the sharp scent of disinfectant clinging to his coat, laced with a faint trace of the familiar cologne she had tried for years to forget. "Marissa," he whispered, gaze fierce as if reaching for the very bottom of her heart. "Please, answer me. Is he mine?" Her whole body locked up. The terror of exposure, the pain she had buried, all came rushing back. For 6 years, she had told herself she'd chosen correctly. Keeping the truth from him meant protecting herself from being broken again. But looking into Damian's eyes now, eyes filled with confusion, longing, and desperation, she knew any lie would shatter instantly. "Eli is 6.5, Marissa murmured, her gaze fixed on the white tile floor. Damian froze, as if struck square in the chest. He staggered back a step, his hands still clenched, voice trembling. "God, then that means when I left?" "Yes." Marissa lifted her head, eyes glistening yet cold. "I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you disappeared from my life." In that moment, time exploded. Damian collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face. A heavy breath broke out of him, edged with the sob he tried to suppress. "I had the right to know," he rasped. "I had the right to be there for him." Marissa let out a bitter laugh. "A right? The day you left, you made it perfectly clear, didn't you? You said you needed to devote yourself to medicine, that you couldn't afford any emotional burdens. Do you remember those words? Burdens. I never called you that." Damian protested, his voice nearly cracking. "I was stupid, selfish, thinking my career was everything. But if you had just told me, I did tell you." Marissa cut in, her voice breaking. "I called you 3 times. Once your friend picked up and said you were busy. Once you answered and promised to call back, but you never did. And the last time you told me we should end things because your future mattered more." Damian went still. Faint memories surfaced, brief calls before his board exams. A choked voice on the other end he had brushed aside in his obsession with success. Back then, he had thought he would come back when life was stable. But months became years, and the distance turned into a canyon. I didn't know," Damian stammered, regret flooding his tone. "If I had known you were pregnant, I would have what?" Marissa snapped. "Stayed. dropped out, or chosen your shining future over us all over again? Silence swallowed the room. Damian had no answer. Marissa turned away, her hands trembling as they gripped the chair for balance. For 6 years, she had raised her child alone through feverish nights. Endless work to pay tuition, exhaustion that nearly broke her. Every smile, every time Eli called Mommy, had made the sacrifices worth it. But now, one look, one question, and all those memories were ripped open. Bleeding again. "Damian," she said, her voice raw, "pretend you never saw us." Eli doesn't need a father driven by guilt or duty. He lifted his head, eyes red, gaze burning with resolve. "No, Marissa. Don't push me away again. I've already lost 6 years. I won't lose another day." Her chest tightened. Part of her wanted to believe, to let him into Eli's life. But could trust, once shattered, ever be mended? Then the sound of small footsteps echoed outside. Eli appeared, clutching an X-ray film nearly bigger than himself. "Mommy, I'm done. The doctor said my arm isn't broken, just bruised." The boy's eyes sparkled with excitement. Damian jumped to his feet, smiling warmly. "Our little superhero is tougher than I thought." Eli beamed, holding up the film like a trophy. Marissa's heart churned. Between her son and this man stretched an invisible thread so clear, so undeniable. As Eli chattered about the X-ray room, Damian looked up, his gaze locking with hers. No more words were needed. They both knew the secret was no longer a secret. And from this moment on, their lives would never be the same. 3 days after that fateful encounter at the hospital, Marissa still felt her heart hadn't found its rhythm again. She tried to keep her routine intact, waking early to prepare breakfast, walking Eli to school, then returning to her teaching job and her part-time work. But deep inside, the peace she had worked so hard to build had been shaken. Eli, on the other hand, was different. He couldn't stop talking about Dr. Holt, his voice brimming with excitement. At the table one evening, as he worked on his homework, he whispered while writing, "Mommy, Dr. Holt said I was really brave. I want to tell my teacher tomorrow. And I want him to come watch me play soccer too." Marissa stayed quiet, offering only a faint smile, but her heart sank. She knew well that if Damian stepped into Eli's world, there would be no turning back. Her son was sensitive, yearning for a father figure, and once he bonded, the pain of losing it would be unbearable. That Friday afternoon, just as Marissa was leaving her tutoring class, she saw a familiar car pull up outside the school gate. Damian stepped out, crisp in a blue shirt, his tie loosened as though fresh off a hospital shift. He smiled, his eyes bright yet hesitant. "What are you doing here?" Marissa asked, her voice a mix of surprise and wariness. I came to pick up Eli," Damian said, sincere enough to disarm her. "Just once if you'll allow it." She hesitated. But when she saw Eli running from a distance, his eyes lighting up as he recognized the man, she couldn't bring herself to say no. "Dr. Holt." Eli shouted, racing forward to throw his arms around Damian's legs. "You really came. I thought Mommy was joking." Damian bent down, gathering the boy into his arms, his face overwhelmed with emotion. "I promised, didn't I?" Superheroes always keep their word. On the ride home, the car filled with Eli's laughter. He talked endlessly about scoring a perfect grade on his math test, about his classmates, about an upcoming soccer match. Damian listened intently, asking small questions, as if each detail was the most important story in the world. From the passenger seat, Marissa watched in silence. She couldn't deny it. Damian had a way of making Eli open up instantly, something not everyone could do. That evening, after a simple dinner of spaghetti and salad, Eli insisted Damian sit on the living room floor to build Lego. Father and son, though no one had dared name it. yet shared a connection visible in every smile, every glance. "Look, Daddy-o, I mean. Dr. Holtai made this for you," Eli stammered, blushing as he handed Damian a little Lego car. Damian froze. That word, Daddy, lodged in his throat, making it hard to breathe. He ruffled Eli's hair gently, his voice trembling. "I love it." "Thank you, Eli." From the kitchen doorway, Marissa heard it all. Her heart tightened, aching yet strangely warm. She knew things couldn't go on like this without clarity. Later, when Eli had drifted off to sleep, Damian lingered in the living room. His gaze locked on a drawing taped to the fragilized sketch of a family with only two figures, mother and son, holding hands under the sun. "I miss too much," he whispered, voice hoarse. "Every step, every scraped knee, every fevered night. Marissa, I can't make up for it all, but I want to start now. To be Eli's friend, to be your support if you'll let me." Marissa leaned against the doorframe, gripping her hands tightly. "Do you think it's that simple? 6 years I've raised him alone. 6 years I've been mother and father both. And now you think you can just walk in, say you want to be his dad, and that's enough?" Damian turned, his eyes steady. "No, I don't expect forgiveness overnight. I only ask for a chance. A chance to prove I'm not the selfish boy I was." She stared at him for a long time. In his eyes, she saw exhaustion, regret, but above all, a raw, earnest longing. "Eli adores you," she said at last, her voice breaking into a sigh. "And I don't want him hurt. If you truly mean to stay, start with him. Let Eli decide whether you deserve a place in his life." Damian nodded firmly. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn his trust. And yours, too." Marissa turned away, hiding her reddened eyes. She didn't know if trust could be rebuilt. Yet deep inside, a part of her once shattered was trembling with hope. In the next room, Eli stirred in his sleep, clutching the Lego car tight, whispering one word over and over. Daddy. Marissa heard it, and her heart trembled. She knew their journey had only just begun, and this time none of the three could turn back. On Monday morning, Damian walked into the hospital with a mood unlike any he'd known before. He had just come out of a weekend that was both tumultuous and strangely warm. For 2 days straight, he had picked Eli up from school, taken him out for ice cream, and sat for hours listening to the boys' excited chatter about friends, games, and childish dreams. Each time Eli called him Dr. Holt, almost slipping into Daddy. Damian's heart clenched, a bittersweet ache for the 6 empty years he could never reclaim. Marissa remained cautious. Her gaze never fully softened, but Damian could feel it. She had stopped trying to push him away. And for him, that small shift was enough to believe the road ahead still held a chance. But just as that fragile hope began to flicker, shadows crept quietly closer at the staff meeting that morning. Vivian Cross, a pediatric cardiologist and Damian's official girlfriend, for nearly a year swept into the room with her usual proud stride. Dressed in a crisp white coat, her blonde hair pulled back, her sharp eyes sliced toward him like blades. Vivian smiled thinly, without warmth. "You disappeared all weekend. I called you countless times, and you didn't answer. Was work really that consuming?" He adjusted his glasses, dodging her accusing stare. "I had personal matters." "Sorry I didn't return your calls. Personal matters." Her voice pressed hard on the words. "More important than the surgeries waiting for us? More important than the Palm Springs trip I planned months ago?" He stayed silent. In his mind, the image of Eli proudly showing him a drawing of 3 figures holding hands under a sunlit sky filled every corner of his vision. Blotting out the room, Vivian narrowed her eyes. She had never seen him so distant, so unfocused, especially while standing next to her. A fire of jealousy rose, hot and smoldering like a hidden blaze. That afternoon, instead of joining colleagues for lunch, Vivian quietly followed Damian from a distance. She watched him drive out to a small suburban house, step out slowly with a bag of children's toys in hand. When the door opened, a boy ran into his arms. Shouting in delight, Vivian froze. In that instant, she knew she was staring at her greatest fear. Another woman. Not a fleeting fling, not some passing distraction, but a woman who could make Damian Holt the man she knew as cold, consumed only by scalpels and schedules, sit cross-legged on a living room floor, laughing as a child tossed a ball at his chest. Jealousy surged, sharp enough to make her jaw ache. That evening, when Damian returned to his apartment, she was waiting. The warm glow of the lamp revealed her carefully made-up face, eyes burning with a mix of hurt and fury. "Where were you?" Vivian's voice sliced the air. "Don't tell me it was a shift." "I checked the surgical schedule." "You weren't on call today," Damian faltered. For a moment, he considered lying. But then Eli's clear, trusting eyes flashed through his mind, along with his silent vow, never again to hide, to run, to be the man he used to be. "I was visiting a patient," he said slowly. "A very important patient. A patient." Vivian's laugh was sharp. "You mean that little boy you spent the weekend with? And the woman in that small suburban house?" His silence was answer enough. Vivian stepped closer, her expensive perfume cloying in the air. "Do you realize you're destroying everything? Your career, your reputation, the future we've built. Are you truly willing to throw it all away for an illegitimate child and some struggling single mother?" Her cruelty ignited Damian's anger. He raised his head, his eyes hard as steel. "Don't ever call them that again." "So I was right," Vivian hissed. "He's your son. And she's the past you refuse to bury." Damian didn't deny it. In that moment, denial would have been useless. Vivian turned away, her fists clenched so tight her nails dug into her skin. "You'll regret this, Damian. You have no idea who you're dealing with." The door slammed shut behind her, leaving Damian slumped in his chair, heavy with dread. He knew Vivian was not someone who gave up easily. Once jealousy consumed her, she would stop at nothing to strike at the source. Meanwhile, Marissa remained unaware of the storm gathering outside her modest home. That night, she sat by Eli's bed, listening to him chatter happily about his day, his eyes glowing whenever he mentioned Dr. Holt. She stroked his hair. Her heart warmed, yet uneasy. She had no idea that beyond those walls, another woman was already plotting to turn their fragile happiness into a nightmare. That morning, just as Marissa finished setting breakfast on the table for Eli, the doorbell rang. For a split second, she thought it might be Damian he had promised to stop by before heading to the hospital, but instead, two women in dark suits stood neatly on her porch, clipboards and briefcases in hand. Mrs. Marissa Lane. One of them asked in a firm, clipped tone. Marissa blinked, startled. "Yes, that's me. We're from Child Protective Services. We've received a report concerning the care of your son, Eli Lane. We need to speak with you." Her heart dropped, cold and heavy. "A report. What report?" "My son is healthy. I don't understand. We'd like to come inside." "Mrs. Lane," the other woman said, her voice gentler, but her eyes unyielding at the table. Eli paused, spoon halfway to his mouth, his bowl of cereal unfinished. He stared wide-eyed at the strangers, then ran to grip his mother's hand. "Mommy, what's happening?" Marissa swallowed hard, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Nothing, sweetheart. Go upstairs and grab your toys." "I'll be right there." Eli hesitated, but when she smoothed his hair, he gave a reluctant nod and climbed the stairs. His small footsteps faded, leaving the house steeped in tense silence. The women sat down at the living room table, flipping open their files. The older one began the questioning. "We've received information suggesting Eli has been neglected, that he shows signs of unexplained injuries, and that his living environment is unstable. Can you explain this?" Marissa stared at them in shock. "No, that's impossible. Eli only fell on the playground last week. I took him to the hospital immediately. Dr. Holt examined him personally and confirmed there were no sutures. We will verify that," the woman replied coolly, jotting notes. "We've also been informed that you frequently move, your income is unstable, and your employment is temporary. These circumstances directly impact a child's well-being." Blood rushed hot to Maurice's face. "I work part-time teaching so I can care for my son. I take on extra work at home so I can always be near him." "That's not neglect, that's sacrifice." But no matter what she said, their eyes remained skeptical. Nearly an hour later, when they finally left, Marissa collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Hot tears spilled freely. For 6 years, she had endured everything: financial struggle, long nights nursing Eli through fevers, the judgmental stares of others. But never had she been accused of being a negligent mother. "Mommy." Eli peeked timidly from the staircase, his brown eyes anxious. "Did those ladies make you sad?" Marissa quickly wiped her tears, forcing a smile. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just a little trouble." He ran to her, wrapping his small arms around her waist with a determination far bigger than his size. "Mommy didn't do anything wrong. I know it." His words, so pure, made her tears flow harder, but this time they carried a fragile comfort. That evening, Damian arrived. The moment he saw Marissa's swollen eyes, his face darkened. "What happened?" She turned away, voice trembling. Child Protective Services came. "They said someone reported I was neglecting Eli. They're going to investigate." Damian's expression hardened to stone. Who would do such a thing? Who do you think?" Marissa let out a bitter laugh. "I have no enemies," except she didn't finish, but Damian knew. "Vivienne," he stepped closer, laying a hand on her shoulder. "I won't let anyone take Eli from you. I promise." Marissa brushed his hand away, her eyes wet but guarded. "Don't promise what you can't keep, Damian. I only ask one thing. Don't let Eli be hurt again." A rare fury ignited inside him. He knew Vivienne was clever enough to leave no trace, cunning enough to stage the perfect lie. And he knew, if this escalated, the damage wouldn't just scar Marissa, would scar Eli too. That night, as Marissa soothed Eli to sleep, Damian stood outside the boy's bedroom door, watching silently. Eli curled into his mother's embrace, murmuring, "Don't be sad, Mommy. I'm here." Damian's eyes blurred. He realized this wasn't just Marissa's battle anymore. This was his son, and he couldn't stand by while false accusations threatened to shatter the boy's life in the darkness. Damian made a silent vow. He would uncover the truth, no matter who he had to. Damian drove through the night with his thoughts in chaos. On the dashboard, his phone buzzed again and again with messages from Vivienne. "You misunderstood me. I was only trying to protect you. Damian, we need to talk. If you choose her, you'll lose everything." He silenced the screen, gripping the wheel until his knuckles turned white. All he could see in his mind was Marissa clutching Eli, her face pale as she told him about the Child Protective Services inspection. Rage surged in him, but beneath the anger lay something deeper: guilt. He should have been there from the very beginning, shielding them from this petty cruelty. The next morning, Damian walked straight into the hospital's administration wing. He sought out an old colleague in the records office, a man who still owed him a favor. "I need to see the report filed about Marissa Lane," Damian said firmly. The man hesitated. "Damian, you know those records are confidential. If this gets out, Both of us. I just need the sender's name. Damian's eyes locked on his. If you don't help me, an innocent child could lose his mother. I can't let that happen. After a long silence, the man sighed and slipped him a photocopy. You never saw this. I never said a word. Damian unfolded the sheet, his gaze falling on the bold print. Submitted by Dr. Vivian Cross. His chest tightened. Suspicion turned into crushing certainty. That afternoon, he arranged to meet Vivian at a cafe near the hospital. She entered with her usual polished confidence, still radiating poise. You called me here to apologize, didn't you? Vivian sat down, a faintly triumphant smile on her lips. I know you're angry, but in time, you'll see. I only did this for your career. Damian placed the photocopy on the table, his voice cold. This is your signature. You filed a false report, accusing Marissa of neglect. Do you have any idea what you've done? For a heartbeat, Vivian faltered. Then her composure snapped back. Do you really think that child is good for you? Damian, you're letting emotions cloud your judgment. A doctor with your potential can't be shackled by some woman and her illegitimate child. Don't say another word about them. Damian's fist slammed against the table, his voice low and sharp. Eli is my son. My son. Vivian froze, eyes widening. What did you just say? Eli is mine, Damian repeated, slow and clear. And I will do whatever it takes to protect him. Even if it means exposing you and your father for abusing your Mrs. positions to fabricate reports. Her face drained of color before twisting into a bitter laugh. You're naive, Damian. Do you really think a young doctor's word can stand against mine? Against my father's influence? We have power, connections. What does Marissa have? A rented house and a part-time job. You'd throw your career away for them? It's not throwing it away, Damian said, his eyes blazing. It's choosing. And for the first time in my life, I'm choosing right. The conversation ended in heavy silence. Vivian stood, heels striking sharply on the floor, leaving behind the suffocating scent of her perfume. Damian remained seated, his hands trembling with anger and relief. At last, the lies were severed. That evening, he went to Marissa's home. She opened the door, worry still etched in her face. Why are you here? Her voice was tired. I have proof. He held out the photocopy. It was Vivian. She filed the false report. Marissa stared at the paper, then at him, tears welling. I knew, but I still hoped I was wrong. Damian, if this comes to light, you'll lose everything. I already lost everything once, he said softly, but with conviction. I won't let it happen again. You and Eli are everything now. At that moment, Eli bounded out of his room, clutching a toy car. Dr. Holt. You came to play with me again? Damian knelt and pulled the boy into his arms. For the first time, he didn't flinch at hearing Eli's voice call his name. Instead, his heart filled with a certainty he'd never known. This was where he belonged. From the kitchen doorway, Marissa watched, her emotions a storm. She had sworn never to let Damian wound them again. Yet tonight, his eyes no longer those of a selfish young man, but of a man transformed made her heart stir with something dangerously close to hope. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, foreshadowing storms still to come. But within that small house, Marissa knew the truth had finally come to light. And sometimes, truth was the first step toward justice, toward healing a family once broken. The heavy doors of the family court closed behind Marissa with a thud that made her heart tremble. Beside her, Eli clung to her hand, his small palm warm but anxious. He didn't fully understand what was happening, only that Mommy had told him he needed to be very brave. Today, Damian was already waiting in the hallway, a thick stack of documents in his hand. When his eyes met Eli's, the stern lines of his face softened. He crouched down and whispered, "Hey, champ, You don't need to be afraid. Both your mom and I are right here with you." Eli blinked, startled. "Mom and Dad?" he asked hesitantly, looking up at Marissa. Her grip tightened on his hand as she fought back tears. She knew this moment would come sooner or later. "That's right, sweetheart," she whispered. "Dr. Holt is your father." Eli froze, his wide eyes searching both of their faces. Then, slowly, as though the confusion melted away, a smile bloomed across his face like sunlight breaking through clouds. "I really have a dad." Damian nodded, his voice breaking. "Yes, and I'm so sorry I came so late. But from now on, I'm never leaving again." The courtroom bell sounded. The three of them walked in together. At the front sat a silver-haired judge whose sharp gaze held a surprising gentleness. She flipped through the case file and spoke calmly. "We are here today to resolve the complaint concerning the care of Eli Lane. However, with the new evidence provided, the circumstances have changed significantly. I will hear first from Dr. Damian Holt." Damian rose, shoulders squared. His testimony was concise but resolute, the evidence proving Vivian Cross had filed a false report. Recordings of their conversations, photos showing Eli's healthy, loving home. His voice no longer wavered with doubt. It carried the strength of a father defending his child. Marissa sat silently, watching him, her heart conflicted. He was no longer the boy who once chose ambition over love. This was a man grown, accountable, unafraid to stand in court and claim, "Eli is my son." When Damian finished, the judge turned to Marissa. "Ms. Lane, do you wish to speak?" Marissa inhaled deeply. "Your Honor, I have raised my son alone for 6 years. I thought I was strong enough to do it all, and that Damian had chosen to leave. But today, I know I cannot keep hiding the truth. Eli deserves to know his father, and I believe he truly wants to be one." Between them, Eli looked small in his chair, but suddenly he lifted his head. His clear voice rang out, "I want both my mom and my dad. I want us to be together." The room fell silent. The judge smiled softly. "The child has spoken for us all." She signed the document and declared, "This court hereby recognizes Dr. Damian Holt as the legal father of Eli Lane. Shared custody arrangements will proceed, always in the child's best interests." The gavel struck. It sounded like the toll of a bell heralding a new beginning. Marissa couldn't hold back her tears. Damian reached for her hand, his touch trembling. And together they leaned down to embrace Eli. "Dad," Eli whispered, tentative but firm. Damian's arms tightened around him, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here, champ. I'm here." Through the window, afternoon sunlight poured in, bathing them in golden warmth. In that moment, doubts and scars seemed to fade, leaving only a family imperfect, but real. As they left the courthouse, Eli bounded ahead, waving the signed document like a treasure. "I'm going to show my teacher. I'll tell my friends I have a dad now." Behind him, Marissa and Damian walked side by side. They didn't speak, but their eyes met full of unspoken words. And in that quiet, both knew, from today on, none of them would walk alone again. The first summer rain lashed down over the city as though it meant to wash everything away. Inside Marissa's little house, the kitchen glowed with warmth. She stirred a pot of chicken, soup Eli's favorite while. Damian sat at the dining table, helping the boy with his math homework. The scene was simple, yet to Marissa it felt both tender and fragile. Like a dream too delicate to touch. Eli tapped his chin in thought, then suddenly beamed. "Dad, I got it. 7 + 5 is 12. Damian laughed and ruffled his son's hair. "That's my champ. Keep this up and you'll outsmart me one day." Marissa froze in place, quietly watching them. The sight made her chest tighten. For years, she had only known life with just the two of them. Now Damian's presence shifted everything. Gratitude battled with fear inside her, fear that this newfound happiness could shatter in an instant, and the fear wasn't unfounded. Outside their fragile peace, Vivi and Cross had not disappeared. One afternoon, after Marissa brought Eli home from school, she found an envelope waiting on her doorstep. Inside were photographs taken in secret, her, Damian, and Eli together, smiling like a family. On the back of one photo, in familiar handwriting, were the words, "Happy little family, aren't you? Don't forget, he used to be mine." Marissa's hands shook. She shoved the pictures into a drawer before Eli could see, forcing her face calm. But inside, a storm was already rising. That night, when Damian came over, she showed him the envelope. He fell silent, then clasped her hand tightly. "Vivian, she's not finished. But don't be afraid. I'll protect you and Eli, whatever it takes." Damian Marissa's voice trembled as she met his gaze. "If your career is destroyed because of us, I'll never forgive myself. Marissa, I already lost you once because I chose wrong. I won't repeat that mistake. Careers can be rebuilt. But you and Eli, you're irreplaceable." His words cracked the wall around her heart. Yet she knew the real storm was still coming. It struck faster than she expected. That Monday morning, the city's major newspaper splashed a headline across its front page. "Dr. Damian Holt, the hidden life of a pediatric savior." The article didn't just mention his newly established paternity of Eli. It laced the story with poison, insinuating that Marissa had manipulated their relationship to trap him. Reading it, Marissa's cheeks burned with shame. Her mind raced to Damian's colleagues, to the parents of his patients, to the gossip that would surely swirl at Eli's school gate. Her phone rang nonstop. Damian's voice came through the line. "Marissa, you saw the article." "I did." Her voice trembled. "Damian, if Eli gets teased over this, I'll handle it. I promise." But promises always came with a price. That afternoon, at the hospital, Damian was summoned by the director. The older man's eyes were grave. "Damian, you're an excellent physician. But these personal matters are tarnishing the hospital's reputation. You need to consider your priorities." The message was clear. Choose career or choose family. That evening, Damian returned to Marissa's house, heavy with unspoken weight. Eli looked up from the floor, where he was busy drawing. Beaming, he held up his paper. "Daddy, look. I drew us. This is Mommy, this is you, and this is me." In the drawing, 3 figures held hands beneath a rainbow. Childlike, imperfect to Damian, it was truth itself. He scooped Eli into his arms and whispered, "Son, no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." From the doorway, Marissa watched, tears streaming silently. The storm might take many things from them, but perhaps not what truly belonged. Later that night, Damian sat on the porch, listening to raindrops drum against the roof. Marissa came quietly and draped a scarf over his shoulders. "I'm scared, Damian," she whispered. "But when I see you with Eli, maybe we're stronger than I thought." He squeezed her hand firmly. "Storms always pass, Marissa. And when the rainbow comes, we'll still be here together. The 3 of us, beneath the golden glow spilling from the window." They sat side by side, silent but resolute, a small family, braving the storm, choosing to hold on to each other. The news of Damian and Marissa's relationship spread like wildfire. Whispers followed them everywhere along the hospital corridors. At the elementary school gates where Eli studied, even in the cozy corner cafe Marissa used to frequent. The looks people gave were no longer neutral. They carried curiosity, judgment, sometimes even disdain. Marissa chose silence. She kept on with her freelance work and poured herself into raising Eli. But inside, storms raged. She feared her son would suffer from the cruel gossip. And deeper still, she feared Damian after everything would once again choose the path that had torn them apart before. Career and reputation over love and family. Damian faced his own reckoning. During an emergency meeting, the hospital board was blunt. "Damian, you're a talented physician, but this scandal is damaging the hospital's reputation. We suggest you request a transfer, at least until the controversy dies down." He sat rigid, hands clenched together. A transfer meant leaving Marissa and Eli least physically, if not more. And beneath the surface, it signaled something worse. The career he had sacrificed so much for might veer onto a path from which he could never return. That evening, he came to Marissa's home. At the dining table, his face was tense, weighed down by unspoken thoughts. "They want me to transfer," he said finally. His voice hoarse. Marissa froze, her spoon almost slipping from her hand. "Transfer to where?" "Another branch. Another city. They claim it's temporary. But we both know once I leave, it'll be nearly impossible to come back." Silence fell heavy between them. In the living room, Eli sat humming along to a cartoon tune, crayons scattered around as he drew happily. The innocence of his voice only deepened the tension hanging over the adults. Damian Marissa's words trembled. "I don't want you to lose your career because of us. You fought too hard for it. You deserve recognition." He lifted his gaze to her, conflict blazing in his eyes. "Do you think I'm here out of obligation? No, Marissa. I'm here because I want to be. But now they're forcing me to choose a spotless career or protecting you and Eli." Her throat tightened. "If you have to choose, then don't choose me." The words struck him like a blade to the chest. "What are you saying? If you give up your dream, and one day you look back with regret for choosing us, I couldn't bear it." Damian surged to his feet, standing before her. "Marissa, listen to me. For years, I put my career above everything, and what did it cost me? I lost you. I lost 6 years with my son. I've learned my lesson. A dream isn't a title on a wall or headlines in a paper. My dream, my real dream, sitting in this house, eating dinner with you, hearing Eli laugh. I won't walk away again. Never." Marissa's eyes shimmered with tears. She wanted to believe, to lean into that promise. Yet the ghosts of the past calls unanswered. Promises broken still haunted her heart. Just then, Eli ran in, clutching his newest drawing. "Look, Mommy, Daddy. I drew us having a picnic at the park. Here's Daddy grilling, Mommy reading, and me flying a kite." He beamed, holding up the crayon-colored paper. In his wide, innocent eyes, there was no storm. Only hope for a whole family. Damian crouched down and wrapped his son in his arms. His voice was low but steady, meant for Marissa too. "I promise, champ. No matter what anyone says, I'll be here. With you, with Mommy." Marissa stood still, tears tracing her cheeks. Those weren't grandiose promises of glory. They were a choice. And this time, Damian had chosen them not because he had to, but because he truly wanted to. Outside, the rain had ceased. Moonlight spilled through the window, glinting across Eli's drawing. In that pale light, Marissa felt it clearly. A new chapter was unfolding. But she also knew Damian's choice would cost him dearly. And the question remained, would love and family be strong enough to fill the void of everything he might lose? On a late autumn morning, golden sunlight stretched across the small street where Marissa's house stood. Red maple leaves drifted onto the walkway, and the breeze tinkled the wind chimes on the porch. Inside, the kitchen glowed with warmth, the smell of fresh apple pie filling every corner. Eli sat perched on a high chair, clutching a marker as he carefully wrote on a cardboard sign, "The Holt Lane Family." Every now and then, he looked up, grinning at his parents. Daddy, did I spell it right? Damian leaned down, nodding with mock seriousness. Perfect. Champ. Much neater than your dad's handwriting. Marissa slid the pie from the oven and shook her head, smiling. You're teaching him the strangest comparisons. But her eyes shone with quiet joy. Since the day Damian chose to stay, their lives had slowly found rhythm. He had left the central hospital and accepted a post at a small neighborhood pediatric clinic. The salary wasn't as high, but it gave him something far more valuable: time. He walked Eli to school each morning, returned in the afternoon to help with homework, play superhero games, or read comics together. Marissa had taken on more design projects, no longer crushed by the weight of providing alone. But most of all, she finally felt something she had never dared to dream of: a real family. One she didn't have to hold up by herself. Of course, not every day was seamless. There were still evenings when Damian came home exhausted, or at times Marissa panicked over Eli's fever. But instead of carrying it in silence, they learned to sit down and talk. Arguments came, but instead of breaking them apart, they became the grounding notes in the music of their shared life. One Saturday afternoon, Eli burst into the kitchen, his face glowing. Mom, Dad, next week is family day at school. I want both of you to come. Marissa hesitated. In years past, when such days came around, she always found excuses so Eli wouldn't feel left out. But now things were different. Damian wrapped an arm around their son, eyes turning to Marissa. We'll go together, won't we? Her throat tightened, but she nodded. Yes, all of us. That day, the schoolyard rang with laughter. Eli ran proudly between his parents, telling his friends, "This is my mom, and this is my dad. My dad's a doctor. My mom's an artist. They're both my superheroes." Damian's eyes glistened as he glanced at Marissa. Years of regret seemed to dissolve in that moment, replaced by the simple truth of being acknowledged by his son. That evening, after Eli fell asleep worn out from the festivities, Damian and Marissa sat on the porch beneath a new moon. Silver light bathed the small yard. "Do you remember," Damian said softly, "how I missed everything back then? But now, just knowing I get to watch Eli grow each day, to share this life with you, I have no regrets left." Marissa leaned her head on his shoulder, her voice tender as the night breeze. "I once thought I could never forgive. But Eli taught me that family doesn't have to be perfect, it only has to hold on to each other." Damian's arm tightened around her, as though he could anchor the moment forever. Winter came, and they celebrated their first true Christmas together. Damian and Eli busied themselves with the tree, hanging glittering ornaments one by one. Marissa prepared roasted chicken and gingerbread cookies at 8 o'clock. They gathered by the fireplace, lights twinkling across Eli's beaming face. He held out a handmade card. "I have a wish," he said, eyes sparkling. "I wish we'll always be together, forever." Marissa and Damian exchanged a glance, then nodded as one. "Your wish," Damian whispered, "is ours too." Outside, snowflakes drifted, blanketing the rooftops. Inside, laughter mingled with the scent of gingerbread and cinnamon. Later that night, Marissa watched father and son asleep on the sofa lie, curled safely in Damian's arms, their breaths steady and calm. A smile touched her lips. They had survived storms, endured loss, and finally found themselves here, at the beginning of something new. Life would still hold challenges, but this time she wasn't alone. They would face them together, the three of them, and maybe true happiness wasn't about a perfect ending. It was about starting over this time, with all the trust and love they had fought to earn. Sometimes the storms in these stories are not so different from real life. We can get caught up in work, pressured to make choices, and end up losing what truly matters because we thought we still had time. But just like Damian and Marissa, reality reminds us, careers and achievements will fade. Yet love and family are what remain. Thank you for listening to this story with Snail Story. If it made you, think about your own journey, the loved ones you may have missed or are trying hard to protect. Please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can meet again in the next stories.